You're not lazy. Lazy people don't sit in quiet guilt, hating themselves for not doing more. Lazy people don't promise themselves they'll change tomorrow and feel the weight of breaking that promise again. Lazy people don't feel this exhausted from doing nothing.
That's Matty.
You do.
C'est.
You wake up already tired, not physically, internally. Even small things feel heavy. Simple decisions feel delayed. Basic tasks feel like they require something you don't have access to anymore. And you blame yourself. You call it laziness. You call it weakness. You call it lack of discipline.
Good.
Because that's the only explanation you were given.
Atud.
If you can't move forward, there must be something wrong with you. So you try to force it. You push yourself harder. You criticize yourself more. You compare yourself to people who seem to move effortlessly. And the harder you push, the heavier you feel. Not because you don't care, because something inside you is resisting. Resisting quietly, resisting consistently, resisting in ways you don't understand. You start to feel ashamed of your own existence, ashamed of your lack of energy, ashamed of your lack of direction, ashamed of your inability to become who you're supposed to be. But here's the part you haven't considered. What if this isn't laziness? What if this is misalignment? What if your exhaustion isn't the result of doing too little, but the result of living something that was never meant for you? Because your body doesn't resist what belongs to you. It resists what doesn't. And maybe you're not failing to move forward, but maybe something inside you refuses to keep going in a life that doesn't feel like yours. You didn't always feel this way. There was a time when you moved naturally, when your energy showed up without force, when your curiosity pulled you forward instead of you having to drag yourself. You didn't have to convince yourself to care. You just did. But somewhere along the way, that changed. Not suddenly, gradually. You started forcing yourself more, forcing yourself to stay consistent, forcing yourself to stay motivated, forcing yourself to become someone who could survive inside the life you built. And force creates resistance. Your body felt it. Your mind felt it. Your nervous system felt it. But you ignored it because ignoring it looked like discipline. You told yourself this is what growth feels like. This is what responsibility feels like. This is what adulthood feels like. You stopped asking yourself if it felt right. You started telling yourself it didn't matter. Because what mattered was continuation. You became good at continuing, good at maintaining expectations, good at being someone others could rely on. And even when you couldn't rely on yourself. And slowly, your energy stopped cooperating. Not because it disappeared, because it withdrew. Withdrawn energy is not laziness. It's protest. Your system was communicating something, not through words, through absence. Absence of motivation, absence of excitement, absence of willingness. Because willingness cannot exist inside something that doesn't feel true. You thought you lost your drive. But drive doesn't vanish. Drive disconnects from what no longer belongs to you. You started calling it procrastination. That was the word everyone used. Procrastination sounds harmless, temporary, fixable. It sounds like something you can solve with more discipline, more structure, more effort. So you tried. You made plans. You created routines. You promised yourself you would do better. And sometimes, for a few days, you did. You woke up early. You pushed yourself. You forced movement where there was no energy. But it never lasted. Eventually, the resistance came back. Not as rebellion, as heaviness. A weight you couldn't explain. Tasks that should have been simple felt impossible. Not because they were difficult, because they felt meaningless. You weren't confused. You understood what needed to be done. You just couldn't access the part of yourself that cared. And that scared you. Because you remembered who you used to be. You remembered having energy. You remembered caring. You remembered moving forward without forcing it. And so you asked yourself the most dangerous question. What happened to me? You assumed something broke, something weakened, something disappeared. You assumed it was your fault. Because that's what you were taught. If you can't maintain motivation, you lack discipline. If you can't stay consistent, you lack strength. If you can't continue, you lack character. So you blamed yourself. But blame didn't fix it. Shame didn't fix it. Force didn't fix it.
Oh man.
Because this wasn't a discipline problem. It was a signal.
But
A signal your system was sending you. Not through words, through resistance. Resistance is not random. Resistance is protective. Your nervous system doesn't resist what feels aligned. It resists what feels threatening. Not physically threatening.
master.
Existentially threatening. Threatening to your identity. Threatening to your emotional survival. Threatening to the part of you that knows this isn't where you belong. But belonging is complicated. You built this life carefully, responsibly, logically. You made decisions that made sense. Decisions that created stability. Decisions that created safety. And safety was supposed to feel good. But safety without alignment feels like suffocation. Not obvious suffocation. Quiet suffocation. You can still breathe, still function, still continue. But something inside you stops expanding. You stop growing, stop feeling, stop moving forward naturally. Not because you don't want to, because something inside you refuses. And refusal feels like failure. From the outside. But from the inside, it feels like protection.
Why?
Protection from disappearing completely. Because continuing in the wrong direction doesn't just exhaust you, it erases you. You started to feel that erasure. Not dramatically, subtly. You stopped recognizing yourself in your routines, stopped recognizing yourself in your goals, stopped recognizing yourself in the person your life required you to be. You became functional, reliable, predictable, and deeply disconnected. Disconnected from your curiosity, disconnected from your excitement, disconnected from your own momentum. Momentum became something you had to manufacture, not something you naturally had. And manufacturing energy is exhausting. You blamed yourself for that exhaustion, called it laziness, called it weakness, called it failure. But laziness doesn't feel like grief. This did. Because part of you knew this wasn't about effort, knew this wasn't about discipline, knew this wasn't about motivation. Knew this was about meaning. And meaning cannot be forced. Meaning is either present, or it isn't. You tried to create meaning artificially, tried to convince yourself this was enough, tried to convince yourself this was success. But your nervous system didn't believe you. Your nervous system responded honestly through withdrawal, through resistance, through exhaustion. Not to destroy you, to protect what was left of you. Because if you fully adapted, fully accepted, fully became the person this life required, there would be nothing left to come back to. And that's when the truth finally became unavoidable. Not gently, not comfortingly, clearly. You're not lazy. Lazy people don't grieve their own potential. Lazy people don't mourn the version of themselves they can feel slipping away. Lazy people don't feel trapped inside a life that looks successful from the outside, but feels empty from the inside. You're not lazy. You're disconnected. Disconnected from meaning. Disconnected from yourself. Disconnected from the life that once felt like yours. And disconnection doesn't create energy. It removes it. Because energy doesn't come from discipline. Energy comes from alignment. And misalignment doesn't make you weak. It makes you stop. Not because you can't continue. Because something inside you knows. You shouldn't. You tried to fix yourself. That was your first instinct. You didn't question the life. You questioned you. You assumed the structure was correct, and you were the defect inside it. So you searched for solutions, better routines, better habits, better discipline. You studied people who never seemed to struggle, people who woke up early, people who stayed consistent, people who moved forward without resistance. You thought, if I become more like them, this feeling will disappear. So you forced yourself, forced productivity, forced motivation, forced momentum. And sometimes it worked. Temporarily, you could mimic energy. mimic drive, mimic alignment. But mimicry is fragile. Eventually, you always returned to the same weight, the same resistance, the same quiet refusal. And that's when the shame deepened. Because now, it wasn't just that you couldn't move forward. It was that you couldn't stay forward. Yeah, you couldn't maintain the version of yourself you believed you were supposed to be. So you pushed harder, criticized yourself more, punished yourself internally. You called yourself lazy, because calling yourself lazy felt easier than questioning your entire life. Laziness is a personal failure. Personal failures can be fixed, but misalignment changes everything. Misalignment forces you to confront the possibility that the problem isn't you, it's where you are. And that realization is destabilizing, because you built this life carefully. You invested time, energy, identity. You made sacrifices to get here. So admitting it might be wrong feels like erasing everything you've done. It feels like losing control. So you protect the life, and blame yourself instead. Blame protects the structure. Blame allows continuation. Blame keeps everything intact. Even when intact means empty. You began to split yourself. The external version of you continued performing, continued producing, continued meeting expectations, while the internal version of you withdrew, not out of weakness, out of preservation. Preservation of something fragile. Your identity. Because identity cannot survive prolonged misalignment. Identity requires authenticity. And authenticity cannot exist inside something that feels false. So your system did the only thing it could. It stopped cooperating. It reduced your energy, reduced your motivation, reduced your willingness. Not to punish you, to protect you. Protection often looks like dysfunction from the outside, but internally, it's survival. What? Survival of the part of you that still knows who you are. You thought your system was broken. It wasn't. It was resisting replacement. Replacement of your identity with something more acceptable, more stable, more predictable, more disconnected. And the longer you forced yourself to continue, the stronger the resistance became. Because force accelerates erasure. Force pushes you further away from what is real. You felt that distance growing. Distance between you and the person you used to be. Distance between you and the person you were becoming. Distance between you and your own life. You started to feel like an imposter. Not because you weren't capable, because you weren't present. You were performing, not existing. Maintaining, not living. And maintenance doesn't create energy. Maintenance consumes it. You wake up tired, not because you didn't sleep enough, because you are maintaining someone you no longer are. And that's when the most dangerous truth finally emerges. Not suddenly, not dramatically. Inevitably. You're not lazy. You're exhausted from maintaining a life. That requires your absence. A life that functions better when you disappear inside it. A life that rewards your performance and ignores your presence. And the most painful part isn't the exhaustion. It's the realization that nothing about this life is designed to bring you back. Because from the outside, everything is working. Everything looks fine. Everything looks like success. Except the part of you that's no longer there to live it. At some point, you stop trying to explain it. Not because you understood it, because you were tired of being misunderstood. Tired of people telling you to push harder, to be more disciplined, to stop making excuses. They didn't see what it cost you just to continue. They saw your inaction. They didn't see your internal resistance. Resistance that wasn't loud. Resistance that was heavy. Heavy in a way that didn't make sense. Heavy in a way that followed you everywhere. Even when you rested. Even when you had time. Even when nothing was wrong. Especially when nothing was wrong. Because when something is wrong, you can blame it. You can point to the problem. You can explain your exhaustion. You can justify your lack of movement. But when nothing is wrong, there is nowhere to put the blame. So it lands on you. You begin to believe the story. That you are lazy, that you are weak, that you are incapable, that something inside you is broken. And believing that story hurts more than the exhaustion itself.
Right.
Because exhaustion is physical. But shame is identity. Shame rewrites how you see yourself.
Exhaustion.
It turns your resistance into evidence of your failure. It convinces you that the problem is who you are, not where you are. So you stop trusting yourself. Stop trusting your feelings. Stop trusting your instincts. Stop trusting your resistance. Because resistance must be weakness. It must be laziness. It must be something you need to overcome. So you override it. You ignore your body, ignore your emotions, ignore the quiet voice inside you that keeps asking you to stop. Not stop living.
Yes.
Stop pretending. But pretending became necessary. Pretending allowed you to function, allowed you to continue, allowed you to survive inside a life that didn't feel like yours. And survival became your identity. You became the person who could endure boredom, endure emptiness, endure disconnection, endure yourself. But endurance has a breaking point.
What?
Not a visible one, an internal one. You begin to feel grief. Not grief for something you lost. Grief for something you never had.
Yes.
You never had alignment, never had presence, never had ownership of your own direction.
So
You inherited expectations, inherited responsibilities, inherited a life that made sense to everyone except you. And now your system refuses to carry it anymore. Not out of rebellion, out of preservation. Preservation of something fragile. Your truth. Because continuing like this doesn't just exhaust you, it erases you. You feel that erasure happening. Slowly, quietly, relentlessly. You become less expressive, less curious, less alive. You become functional, predictable, manageable. You become someone others can rely on, but someone you cannot recognize. And that's when the grief deepens. Because now you see the truth. You weren't lazy. You were disappearing. Disappearing inside routines that didn't reflect you. Disappearing inside expectations that didn't belong to you. Disappearing inside a life that never asked who you were. It only asked what you could produce. And production became your worth. Your value became measured by output. Not presence. Not meaning. Not aliveness. Output. But output cannot sustain identity. Identity requires authenticity.
Yes.
And authenticity cannot survive inside something that feels false. You tried to survive it. Tried to adapt. Tried to become someone who could live inside it comfortably. But your system resisted. Not because you were weak. Because you were still there. Still aware. Still alive enough to know this wasn't you. And that awareness is painful. Because awareness removes the illusion. Removes the lie that you can fix this. By fixing yourself. You don't need more discipline. You don't need more force. You don't need more shame. You need alignment. Because laziness is not the absence of effort. It's the absence of meaning. And meaning cannot be forced. Meaning can only be lived. And the longer you live without it, the harder it becomes to remember who you were before you disappeared. There is a moment when you stop blaming yourself. Not because everything suddenly makes sense, but because something inside you refuses to accept the lie anymore. The lie that you are weak, the lie that you are broken, the lie that you are lazy. You begin to see your exhaustion differently, not as a personal failure, as information. Information your body has been trying to give you. Information your nervous system has been protecting. Information your resistance has been carrying for years. But you realize something unsettling. Your exhaustion was never random. It was specific. You didn't feel exhausted by everything, only by certain things, certain environments, certain expectations, certain roles you were forced to perform. And that distinction matters, because burnout drains everything. Misalignment drains selectively. It drains what doesn't belong to you. It drains what contradicts you. It drains what replaces you. You begin to remember moments when you didn't feel this way, moments when energy appeared naturally, when curiosity moved you forward, when effort didn't feel like force. Those moments weren't accidents. They were alignment. Alignment doesn't require discipline. Alignment generates energy, because energy is not created by force. Energy is released by truth. Truth about who you are. Truth about what matters to you. Truth about what doesn't. But truth is dangerous, because truth threatens everything built on adaptation, everything built on survival, everything built on becoming someone you were never meant to be. You understand now why your system resisted.
Yes.
It wasn't trying to stop you. It was trying to save you. Save you from fully disappearing. Save you from fully replacing yourself. Save you from fully becoming someone you could never feel alive as. You thought resistance was your enemy. It was your last protection. Protection of your identity. Protection of your presence. Protection of the part of you that refused to die quietly. Because complete adaptation would have erased you completely. You see now why discipline never worked, why force never lasted, why motivation never stayed. Because motivation cannot exist inside something that destroys you. You weren't designed to function endlessly. You were designed to live. And living requires alignment, not perfection, not productivity. Alignment. Alignment with your values. Alignment with your identity. Alignment with your truth. Without alignment, everything feels heavy, everything feels forced, everything feels meaningless. With alignment, energy returns. Not instantly, not completely. But honestly, you begin to feel glimpses of yourself again. Glimpses of curiosity. Glimpses of presence. Glimpses of life. Not because your life changed yet, because you did. You stopped believing the lie. You stopped calling yourself lazy. Stopped calling yourself broken. Stopped calling yourself the problem. And that shift changes everything. Because once you stop attacking yourself, you can finally start listening. Listening to what your exhaustion was trying to tell you. Listening to what your resistance was protecting. Listening to what your life has been missing. You, not the version of you that performs. The version of you that exists. And existence is where energy begins again. You begin to notice it in small moments, not dramatic changes, not sudden transformations. Subtle returns. Moments where you feel a flicker of energy without forcing it. Moments where curiosity appears without discipline. Moments where you feel present without trying. Those moments feel unfamiliar because you forgot what it feels like when your life doesn't require your disappearance. You spent so long believing you were the problem, believing you were lazy, believing you were broken, that you never questioned the structure itself. You never questioned the life. You questioned you, and questioning yourself became your identity. You became someone who constantly needed fixing, constantly needed improving, constantly needed correcting. But now, you see the truth. You were never the failure. You were the signal. The signal that something wasn't aligned. The signal that something wasn't true. The signal that something wasn't yours. Your exhaustion wasn't weakness. It was communication. Communication from the part of you that refused to disappear completely. You begin to understand why forcing yourself never worked. Because force doesn't create alignment. Force creates compliance. And compliance requires your absence. Compliance asks you to become manageable, predictable, replaceable. But aliveness is none of those things. Aliveness is unpredictable. Aliveness is uncertain. Aliveness is honest. And honesty threatens everything built on survival. You realize now how much of your life was built to be survived, not lived. Built to function, not to belong.
Yes, he's a.
Built to continue, not to feel.
It's a.
And continuing required you to leave yourself behind. You became someone who could endure anything. Accept your own truth. But truth doesn't disappear.
Yeah.
Truth waits. Waits beneath the exhaustion, beneath the resistance, beneath the version of you that learned how to survive without existing.
That's a.
And now you can feel it again.
What
Not as clarity, as discomfort. Because truth disrupts. Truth destabilizes. Truth demands change. Not immediate change. Honest change. You don't have to destroy your life. You just have to stop abandoning yourself inside it. Stop forcing yourself to become someone you were never meant to be. Stop blaming yourself for resisting your own erasure. Because you were never lazy. Lazy people don't grieve their own potential. Lazy people don't feel trapped inside success. Lazy people don't feel exhausted by lives that look fine from the outside. You were never lazy. You were misaligned. You were disconnected. You were surviving. And survival was never supposed to be permanent. You were meant to return, not to who you used to be, to who you are. The version of you that exists without force, exists without shame, exists without needing to disappear. Because the truth was never that you couldn't move forward. It was that you couldn't move forward without leaving yourself behind. And now, for the first time, you don't have to. You're not lazy. You were living a life that required your absence. And the moment you realized it was the moment you began to come back